How emotionally absorbed are you in scrolling right now? Have you ever been in work and you're you do a job, you do a task, and it's you feel like pretty proud of yourself because you did such a good job, and then you go to your boss and you tell them that you complete the task, and they just kind of shun you off and go, "That's grand, great, okay, now can you go ahead and do this other thing?" And they're so absorbed in what they're doing in their daily tasks that they can't recognize how well you've done, and this can feel very stressful for some people because they don't feel like their work is recognized and that they're not being qualified. So that can set the mood for the day, and a person can go around not as motivated as they could be. Now, maybe you've done this as well yourself, that you're so emotionally absorbed in something that you forget about everything else. So an example of this would be you go into the cinema or you start watching a movie on Netflix, and for that first few moments you're kind of aware of everything around you. But then after a while, when the movie starts, you start to get engrossed in it, and then you become absorbed in it, and then you become so emotionally absorbed that you don't know you're absorbed in it. Now, on the outside of that is other things that could be more important, but you can't see them in that moment. So sometimes it's good to be able to, especially in a company, in work, with work colleagues and friends. Now, it's important to qualify and recognize what they're doing and have control over your attention to be able to put it on what they're doing and just qualify it, and be aware that sometimes you might be emotionally absorbed in what you're doing. So the skill is to be able to be aware that you can be absorbed in something at that moment, and just catch yourself and take a big step back and go, how emotionally absorbed am I in this right now? And is there something else that could be more important long term, like the relationships with your colleagues and your family or your friends, whoever you could be paying more attention to? And are you aware that that person is probably looking for a little bit of approval? We all are. A little bit of approval to qualify that they're going in the right direction. And if you don't give them that approval, how is that going to affect them long term? It's going to build up over a period of time, and they're going to just get fed up. And then you'll notice companies have a high staff turnover because the staff don't feel appreciated. Now, always take into consideration that the person that's absorbed in their job could be also absorbed in what's going on in their mind. And everybody is going through something like that at the moment. Like you're so absorbed, emotionally absorbed in something that happened earlier in the day, or some bills that are coming up, or some problems that are coming up, or like absorbed in thinking about what am I going to be doing? I'm retired. Will I be able to pay the mortgage off? And when you're absorbed in that movie in your head, you don't know that you don't know. You're so absorbed in it. It's like being in the movie, that there's things happening around you and there's other people around. But when you're in the cinema, after a while, you forget about everything else. You totally forget about the outside world, and you're engrossed and absorbed in the movie. This video is just to kind of get you to be a little bit more aware of it and ask yourself, am I absorbed in what I'm doing? Am I too emotionally absorbed in what I'm doing? How much emotional absorption am I having right now with this particular thing that I'm paying attention to? And if somebody comes over and tells you they did something, to just be able to stop for a minute and remind them that they're going in the right direction. It's not this, as I said, it's not that you have to give out participation trophies to everybody and be over nice to people and go, oh my God, that's great. I see that you're doing that. Very well done. Because that can come across condescending sometimes. Genuinely, speak to them and tell them how well they've done, as almost if that's how you'd like to be spoken to. And this can relate to not only being in work, it can relate to your family, your friends, your kids, especially in work colleagues. I see people in companies and I notice that they're so engrossed in what they're doing that if they just knew that someday they're going to be looking back on life and seeing perspective, and they realize that maybe what they were doing was important, and it's good. Probably would have been a good idea to keep your eye on it, but it wasn't as important as that other person there that was trying to get my attention. And maybe if I had to have told them they were good enough, it might have helped them a little bit, because now I can see that they were going through stuff that I didn't know about at the time because I was so absorbed in my own thing at the time. I wish I could have just taken a little step back and just looked over and said, great, can I have a look at what you did? Brilliant, well done, I'm delighted with that, that's brilliant. And that will make them more motivated. It will make them a better friend, it will make them a better colleague, or whatever it may be at the time. This relates to everybody. So a little trick that you can do to start to train yourself to do this, and all my videos are going to be kind of getting you to kind of just be more aware without trying to label anything. Just set a timer on your phone for an hour or 2 hours. People, not for 10 minutes, because that'd be a little bit overkill, because you can if you want, but it might be a little bit disruptive to your day. And set it for a couple of hours. And when it goes off, just stop and go, what am I emotionally absorbed in right now? Is it a problem? Is it a task? And on the outside of that, is there something I could just switch my emotional absorption to and pay more attention to that? And thinking this will add value to my life, you know, and if I move my emotional absorption to this other thing, it will not only add value to my life, but everybody around me for the long term. And still keeping in mind that you're not taking your eye off the ball, you're just keeping your eye on the task at hand. And then train yourself to put your emotional absorption back into what you're doing, but be aware how emotionally absorbed you are in most things in your life, because sometimes you might be so absorbed in it that you don't know you're absorbed in it. So thanks for watching. I'm Paul Campbell, and I'll see you in the next video.